各位观众，大家好，欢迎收看智门 Smart Gate 以及我们的线上节目 Dr. Change 黑天鹅学院。今天呢，我们有来宾是来自国外 ，so I will switch to English. Today we are honored to have a very famous guest from the United States, and we also have another gentleman, Shelton Chen, who have appeared on my show before. But today we're gonna talk about a very important subject, which is manufacturing. Smart manufacturing. It is my honor to welcome a distinguished professor specializing in smart manufacturing from Georgia Tech, Benoit, Montreuil. Benoit, how are you?
I'm doing very fine, thank you.
And I also have the pleasure of inviting once again a gentleman who has appeared on my show before, 乔治亚理工学院亚太区的执行长 Shelton 詹斯敦 Shelton, good to see you again.
CY, thank you so much. Thank you for having me again. Together with my favorite professor.
Yeah, I understand you graduated. You were his student 20 years ago.
Well, I was not his student per se, but we worked together very closely in the last 15 years.
Yeah,
10,
so
15
people,
years.
You may wonder, why we are having this conversation today. Because for those of you who might not know the full picture of the story, we are cooperating with Georgia Tech. We meaning Taiwan and my alma mater. I graduated from 东海大学, Tonghai University, which is also a very good industrial manufacturing. So I put together a deal with Shelton, form a strategic alliance between Georgia Tech and Tonghai University, between United States and Taiwan, focusing on the most important subject right now, manufacturing and smart manufacturing. We all understand Donald Trump had the Trump 2.0. His policy is the MAGA, Make America Great Again, meaning manufacturing in the United States, and that's all he wants. And then the Taiwan company are suddenly facing the need to go to the United States. But to go to the United States, we want to do it a smart way, not the traditional way, labor, China. That was 20 years ago. We are talking about smart manufacturing. So today, we have really the true expert, Professor Benoit from Georgia Tech. And then also, we formed a foundation, 亚侨基金会 and Geo-Asia Foundation. And this foundation already established, which gonna foster the transfer of technology from United States to Taiwan. And then in areas like robotics, AI, digital twins, and smart manufacturing, automation, all of those areas. There's a lot for us to talk about. So that is the background. But first of all, Benoit, you are legendary in the field of manufacturing. But for the audience, people might not know you. So could you briefly introduce your background?
Yeah, I'm Benoit Montreuil. I'm a French-Canadian, and I did my studies in industrial engineering, bachelor's, master's, PhD. I've been professor in Canada, then in the US, been at Georgia Tech for over a decade, where I'm heading the Supply Chain and Logistics Institute over there. And I'm also directing what's called a Physical Internet Center. And Physical Internet, we'll probably have time later on to talk. It's kind of reinventing the fields of supply chain, logistics, freight transportation, and manufacturing like we're focusing here today. So that's about it. And essentially, I'm not your typical professor in the sense that first, I'm very interdisciplinary because I deal since decades, on one side with engineering and technology, on the other side with business. I've been 26 years in a business school also, so I know both sides. And since I was young, I've always been dealing with industry and doing projects with some of the very tiny companies, but also giants, across the world. So very, very used to deal with industry all the time.
Excellent. And how about you, Shelton? Could you briefly talk about your background at Georgia Tech, Asia Pacific in the last 10 years and briefly talk about your role, responsibility in that, and also this time, why we are doing this foundation together and why we are putting all of this together.
Thank you, CY. I started my subject matter expertise in logistics and supply chain really from my alma mater, Georgia Tech as well. So I graduated also with a master's degree in industrial engineering. And I also being on the field for nearly 30 years on the industrial experiences, and building across, mainly focused on Asia. So when I landed this role as the managing director of the international development for Georgia Tech, I have the pleasure to work with Benoit in the last couple of years. We have worked on really major projects, encompasses Hyperloop, also intercity logistics with the company such as SF Express, which is now the biggest logistics company in Asia. Together, by working with Benoit, and also our world-renowned Supply Chain Logistics Institute, we are now pushing to understand how can we take advantage of the current situation in the world by pushing initiatives such as physical internet, and that we believe will create huge impact to the society or to the world, also to how companies are able to create revenue and also making an impact.
Excellent. We'll talk a lot more about that later. Benoit, your visit couldn't be more timely because we are now talking about supply chain. That is very much a key word, supply chain. 10 years ago, very few people talk about supply chain. I went to work at Wall Street, so I'm an investment banker. Everybody talk about investment banking, finance, or marketing. Very few people talk about manufacturing and the supply chain. 10 years ago, people say, well, what is supply chain? And now we are talking about the decoupling of the supply chain. The United States and China. And it used to be all the things manufactured in China, low cost. But now Donald Trump say, no. The national security reasons, the U.S. got to have its own supply chain, in particular in fields like semiconductor or medical equipment. Could you talk a little bit about things you observed in the last, I would say, a decade or in the last 5 years? So many things happen in supply chain. Why it is so important right now?
Supply chain have always been important. Thousands of years ago, they were important. They were not even called supply chain, but they were very important. And what happened is in recent years, we had something very small called COVID, okay, which world pandemics, okay, and suddenly, okay, people understood all the constraints on the supply chain and everything that had to be done to keep the people fed, to get them the vaccine and everything. And so, it has gotten very, very important. And also through the last decades, there's been more and more perturbation, disruptions happening all across the world, okay, wars, okay, flooding, environmental, climate change, and political situation, and technology also. There's disruptions everywhere, so resilience has been becoming very, very important. There was a lot in supply chain, but it was kind of perceived as, it's easy, it just works. It's like Toyota production system. You have little Kanbans and you explain this very fast and that's how it works. But now it's much more complex than this because there's so much uncertainty and so much challenges, like everything we're talking now with the new administration in the US, now the geopolitical, the tariffs that are being put, the incentives to reshore manufacturing and all that. You cannot just do that snap of the finger and think will happen. Now, this has to be done in a smart way and not trying to mimic all the old models, the old paradigms that we have. So that's why on our side, we say you have to not think supply chain like a mechanistic type of steps-by-step process, but much more like the overall infrastructure that will make happen all the goods and services that we care about. And the transformation is as profound as you're at the age as me that we know the world before the internet, how it was, like in electronics, semiconductor and all that, okay, with companies like Control Data, Data General, IBM, and each one had their little networks and they were fighting. And if you were a company, you had to pick among them to get there. That's a world that is gone, okay? So long time
totally
now.
Different.
Yeah, exactly. We have the internet now. We have everything as the supply chain ecosystem has been turned around on its side, okay, and it's operating very differently. We have the clouds. We have all the smart agents. We have everything that is kind of revolutionized the way we're thinking. Now, in supply chain on the physical world, we need to have this kind of transformation that will happen because the old paradigms don't work the same way that earlier in the ICT domain, okay, they were not working anymore. So we are in this kind of situation. So we need to think of this very differently. Now, those are examples of very pragmatic. Recently in the semiconductor industry, the chips for the automotive was a very vivid example of the kind of importance that a country like Taiwan has, okay? So you've got some factories where a lot of those little chips, they're tiny and they're not very complex, the ones that were automotive. They were simple chips, okay? But it's done just there. And suddenly, there's a lack everywhere. It's not in there anymore. So you have huge factories all across the US and the world, okay, that are stopped. And not because they're lacking engines, they're lacking that tiny little chip here, okay? So now this had people understanding that we need to think differently, okay? We need to make sure that the dichotomy of having all the manufacturing over there and Taiwan being active in Taiwan only may not be the smartest way to go, okay? Now, let's have Taiwan has huge expertise in manufacturing in those domains. So let's keep this in front, but let's deploy Taiwan so like Korea, replicate and get them so that they have satellite factories, okay, and new nodes and rethink the supply chain so that you can offer this autonomy to some degree, but this fast availability, agility that is needed. And if I push even further, the real importance, and I'm talking semiconductor as an example because it's very important for Taiwan. The real game is that the new chips, okay, the new microelectronics that is forthcoming will rapidly make obsolete most of what we're doing now, okay, and all the equipments associated with it. So in fact, in 10 years and 20 years, the bulk of what we're doing now is gonna be something that is not gonna be important. So this means that the Taiwanese companies will have to kind of reinvent themselves because this is all new stuff that is coming. And as we do this, why don't we do it smartly and think wider than we're used to? And that's where we're beginning to have this. So that puts the stage for the kind of discussion that we have today.
Very important. Next, I want to talk about globalization and deglobalization. The chairman and the founding chairman of TSMC, Morris Chang, say globalization is dead, and it's very much will be. In the future, in the past, the globalization, meaning manufacturing in the lowest the cost or the most efficient place in China, and then selling to the most highest price market, say in the United States. But now it's fragmented. It's no longer a centralized model. It's a decentralized model. Every company wants to have its factory or AI factory to link together. But I want to challenge you. There's a lot of people say, can the U.S. do manufacturing? Because TSMC, Arizona, initially a lot of problem. The cost is 4 times higher. And then the people say, oh, the U.S., the workers might not have the same discipline. They don't work as hard as the Japanese or Chinese or Taiwanese, and the U.S. will never make it. What is your view, on the future of manufacturing America? Some people say, no, you're talking about nonsense. The U.S. can never, ever do manufacturing. You disagree with that, right?
No, to me, there's first potential, capability, and need for having manufacturing in many more countries than they are now. When we talk global and we say global supply chains are dead, I say the old version of global supply chains are dead. Well, and on this, I'm kind of glad, okay, that this happens. But now we're much more new era of a connected, smart global supply chain. So global because we're thinking the overall planet and how we're trying to serve it, okay? So I'm going to go back to the geopolitical issue in a minute, okay? But the idea is that it was perceived, and I was there when I remember when many of the American and Canadian companies and Western Europe companies, it was bonanza. Let's go to China, okay, and the cheap labor, so cheap, okay? And then they're going to do our stuff, and we're just going to become designers. And
Apple is a good example. All the things manufactured by Foxconn in China, 1 million workers.
Exactly, okay? Well, but Apple at least is one of the good examples, okay? So compared to many others, okay? But this model is China and Asia overall is evolving, okay? That notion that it's cheap labor, that's long obsolete, okay? So there are apartments in Shenzhen, okay, that are worth multi-million dollars, okay? And there are people that are living there, they're not like foreign people, they're people from China that are there. So there's been a growth, okay, in the base salary and everything. This is climbing. So all this notion of cheap labor is not there. Right now, what happened is through all those years, and remember, when they put all the manufacturing into Asia, they essentially took their best engineers, okay, best managers, and essentially designed what would be like good factories, knowing that the kind of labor that was available, etc. But they didn't come here and put something on dirt and very old-fashioned. No, they had the hottest equipment. They was organized in a way that was really smart and done so that it would be easy to manage. Okay, this means that in the world, many of the top factories ended up being designed, implemented by the Western side into China and other countries. Okay.
Yeah, so it's not China alone. You know, they have the help, the input, the sophistication from the United States.
Exactly. And I would broaden it to Europe and all it's broadened. The US, let's say, the flagship of this stuff. But the idea is all this, then here, this has grown. It's just not standing still. So those people are clever, and they worked on it to get more contract. They had to get better and better and better. So now they have created something really good. Now, if we're going to go back, when I say we needed to be in Canada, in the US, in many places in Europe, is because this notion of doing the stuff like thousands of miles away with the lead time associated with it, and the big lot sizes, etc., this doesn't work with the world that we're in. We're stuck with it, so we play with it, but it's all full of hurdles, okay, everywhere. It creates a lot of bad performance associated. So we need this comeback, but this comeback is not going to be the same way. When I said there's capability, because essentially the new factories will be much, much more automated, okay, robotized, smart, driven by AI type of logic. So the number of people that you're going to need to drive a factory as compared to what it was decades ago is just a fraction. It's 10%, okay, 5% of this. So when we reach this, then essentially I can put those factories anywhere in the world as I'm able to control them, okay, pilot them, that I can facilitate the flows in and out of them, etc. They're not going to starve. They're going to be able to deliver what they're supposed to be, so they can be at many places. And I can duplicate. Once I know how to do something, then click, 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 I'm able to do it at others, and I'm interconnecting them so that together create like a web, okay, a manufacturing web, and this gets powerful. You get it? So those are the new ways that we see coming in. So much nearer to where the consumption is, where the clients are. If we're serving the automotive, then let's see where the automotive is, okay? So where their factories, where they're building them. And even the automotive, okay? Right now it's all big, gigantic factory, etc. Even them, they'll be challenged, okay? So to be at different places where you're gonna have, and that's something that happened a lot in Asia, is that you add, instead of having the traditional model of manufacturing with the main OEM and driving it, now you do a lot of contract manufacturing. And the contract manufacturers, many cases, they've become the ones that know how to do it nicely because they're used to deal with designer, product designer, get into the process, make the process easy, design for manufacturing, design for assembly, design for logistics, etc. So they're good, they're contracting, and they're used to pass the ball to others. So this new type means that those factories, they'll probably be more diverse into their client base. They're oftentimes not going to be dedicated just on one client, but it can be for sector, for group, etc. And all this will be highly dynamic. So this is like the new way ahead in there.
Yeah, complete new way. Totally different from the past.
Exactly.
Yeah. And next, I want to talk with you, Shelton. You were born in the United States. Your parents are from Taiwan. You work in China for 10 years, I understand. So you've been through it all. And then I understand being a head of a Georgia Tech Asia Pacific CEO, you had tried 5 years ago to build up a campus in Shenzhen with the full support of the Chinese government. But in October last year, due to the geopolitics between United States, China, you stopped the project, and then now you are in Taiwan. So perhaps you share with us your observation and your experiences. You do it in China, and now you're trying to maybe, as Professor Benoit said, not reinvent the wheel, but doing a different way in Taiwan, and also, as I understand, in Vietnam. So what's your perspective and experience doing China, and now you want to do in Taiwan, and also that now the environment is totally different between United States, China, and everything so sensitive. Tell me about your feeling, and then how you compare, and then how you like to do it at this time, and why you believe Taiwan is the future.
Yeah, thank you, CY. So before I answer these two questions, I want to generate two concepts. One is, what's the future of education? And the second is, what is the future, how Georgia Tech, we have the DNA of collaborating, working with the industries. How can we work with the industries going to the future? So I want to bring these two perspectives first as a fundamental answer to your question. So as Benoit and I, we used to work in Shenzhen very closely, and how the world has evolved and changed now into the current status and situation with the introduction of AI. The education mindset obviously have shifted quite a bit, right? So I think just take an example of, recently we were talking about vibe coding. It's more about how to articulate smartly, by working with AI. So then without going through learning the language such as Pythons, or the large language modeling optimization, you can actually, any regular person can work with AI to develop the next generation software and hardware. So with that being notion, I think we have to look at how Georgia Tech position ourselves in Asia. And I think so exactly to Benoit's point, and also to Georgia Tech's president's future vision, is that we see clusters. We're forming what's called the atrium, a concept that will be developed worldwide. And there's not just one, but there's these what's called the mini satellite campuses that will exist all throughout the world,
including Taiwan.
Yeah, we are working with establishing Taiwan. The first atrium is already officially formed in Atlanta, right? It just got inaugurated. It's actually set up in a very interesting location. It's called the Curiosity Lab in Atlanta. And Curiosity Lab actually is a demo
Innovation
site.
Park.
It's inside an innovation park. It's positioned to be a demo site by connecting in a 5G environment, by connecting with autonomous vehicles, with all types of different solutions as a smart city. So having placed our first atrium there is exemplified that how Georgia Tech wants to work with the industry. And by fostering a local community of learning environment, by forming this what's called the local learning ecosystem with the local entrepreneurs, local government, local universities, local alumni, local industries. And we see this being replicated all throughout the world, exactly to Benoit's points that it's almost like a web of learning system that we foresee this will be the 21st century education. That's why in Asia, we are pioneer through iPad, which is, Benoit is the leader, our executive director for Institute of Supply Chain Logistics. I'm working with another gentleman, Dr. Michael Bass, through what's called the Institute of People and Technology, foster the concept of OIP, which stands for Open Innovation Platform. So Open Innovation Platform will be created in Taiwan, in Vietnam, in the likes of India, Chennai, and also connecting back to the US. And we're forming what's called the connecting the dots as well by doing this together. It's provided flexibility for people to connect and work together and come up with the fastest prototyping, fastest innovation, and also understanding how do we make going local yet but global. So that's the approach we're taking. And then I'm so glad that Benoit, out of his busy schedule, we brought him all the way to Taiwan, but he's going to be touring like a rock star because he's going to Hong Kong, Korea next. He's continuing fostering this, which is his central belief, physical internet, and which now with the riding on the AI waves, this will becoming a very important international strategy initiative that will helping the companies to transform.
Yeah, and then the Georgia Tech in particular, expand a little bit that as a CEO of Asia Pacific, how you were connecting the dots to build up, as Benoit said, the future ecosystem of the future.
Yeah, so the first thing is that we're very happy to have Benoit here because we're kicking off a official collaboration with Donghua University. And we are bringing many different what's called the short form courses through the College of Lifelong Learning. Benoit's physical internet certification program is the first, and that we're kicking off here in Asia. And through that, we hopefully by working with the professionals in Asia, we're looking to have these, whatever we learn in the program into the application aspects. And that's why we'll be working together with Atrians, with our schools, on collaborative research, understanding how to put this innovation projects. So we'll begin to see many
so
exciting
you mentioned
projects.
about working with industry. So it's not pure academic.
Yeah.
It's really applied application
Exactly.
to really make it work.
Yeah, because
that's the strength of Georgia Tech.
and that is the DNA of Georgia Tech.
Right.
Here in Asia, when people see a university, they think of pure academia. But a university in the United States really positions itself as a think tank powerhouse. So we work in each of the geographic area. We work with the government. We work with the innovators. We work with entrepreneurs. We work with educators, students, and the learners, and the professional workforce, really to foster that entire dynamic ecosystem. That's why the education system in the U.S. is number one. I think many other countries will be really hard to beat that kind of dynamic ecosystem, which I think Benoit is very much instrumental to drive that.
Back to you, Benoit. I want to talk about your perspective of Taiwan, how Taiwan can work with the United States, and in this critical moment. You understand Taiwan, relatively well, and then you also visited China before, and now there's a new perspective, the decoupling U.S., China, and Taiwan is becoming even more important because a lot of manufacturing in China in the past, like Foxconn for Apple, is actually Taiwanese in China. So although China is very well advanced in manufacturing, but Taiwan brought the new concept of manufacturing to China 25 years ago, and that's where leads to China it is today. How do you see the role of Taiwan in the future, and how can we work with a leading institution like Georgia Tech and building up a new ecosystem to make smart manufacturing work in the U.S.?
There are many ways this can happen, but let me show you like one scenario. So we love to work with leaders who have transformative ideas and ambitions. Like in last 5 years, just to make way to what Sheldon mentioned earlier, we've been having a major project with a leading company in the construction industry. And the idea was, can we take the concepts of physical internet and apply this into construction, okay? You know about modular construction, where now more and more of construction, you want to build the modules off-site, either 2Ds or full 3D like an apartment like here, and just bring it to the site and raise it to get there. So scaling that industry has proven to be very, very tough. And there are many failures that exist all across the world. So now we're using the new concepts and rethinking this into a much more distributed, interconnected type of construction, manufacturing, supply chain ecosystem that changes the game completely. So practically for us, this means that with that company and some players around, we've had like over 10 PhD students working for over 5 years with number of professors, interdisciplinary set of professors, and with those professors and student and staff. Okay, we've worked with the industry and we're creating together this new era. Okay, so that's an example where squarely interacting with industry, we're providing value, we're meeting with them like almost every week. Okay, many times our people are connected. Okay, they know every player that is going there. The exchanges of data, information, everything is free flowing because we're in partnership on doing this stuff. Now, let's change and come back to Taiwan now. So we know, and it's clear that Taiwan will want to be an active agent into this transformation of manufacturing. Is it going to be back in the US, only done by US? I don't really see this because like in Georgia, we have many companies, for example, the Koreans, are coming.
Hyundai.
Yeah, exactly. Hyundai is there, and then we have batteries and all this stuff. So there's a lot of going on, and really it has been done from a very collaborative perspective. So essentially what we believe is that Taiwan smartly in the places where Taiwan is strong and is present on the overall scene, and notably by expertise in manufacturing, then I really do believe that there's a lot of potential to reposition factories, not the full thing, so very smartly done, so that basically we're succeeded to position in the US at key locations in the US and creating networks of units that will make Taiwan, be able to offer the kind of service that will not be possible from Taiwan. It's kind of it's a new minding, that has to go along, and that we're helping happening is getting from the logic that to be a Taiwanese company, you have to design, to produce, to market, to finance, to do this in Taiwan. And if you're a Canadian, you need to do this all in Canada. You get it? It doesn't work anymore. It puts too many constraints. We need to find ways, like the Japanese. They were scared of getting their automotive plants out of Japan. Now they're all over the world and doing great at it and becoming much better than they were in the past. So this is the kind of thing that some elite companies have succeeded, but again with the old paradigm still, but they've got an image there. And now how do we get the new generation coming in and thinking this smartly? So what we see is that, let's say there's a group of companies in a given sector, could be semiconductor, for example, and say, okay, here's how the game is done right now. In the semiconductor, everybody thinks the very, very small leading edge, but there's a lot of the semiconductor industry and manufacturing that is for pretty mundane type of chips. So that is like, and in fact, the automotive, most of it, is pretty mundane chips, There will be big visions ones, will be there, but a lot of them are simple. So there's this supply chain that is not like the leading edge products from a semiconductor perspective, but they're feeding the world. So those should be, as much as possible, bring them so that the companies will be using this. And then there's a lot of intelligence, that is brought by the Taiwanese to make it happen, but they produce where it's needed. Now there's going to be this leading edge new thing to be done. It might well be that it's going to stay in Taiwan until it's ready to be distributed and interconnected into there. So this here remains like the brain of thinking this, architecturing, designing the system, the technologies, etc. And then, you are moving all around and you're going to learn from all of them. And once they're put in place, they're going to contribute. But that is not against Taiwan. You get it? It's not going to be stealing from Taiwan it's going to be Taiwan being present and working with the world and showing them how Taiwan can be smart and helpful and creating value. And think about it, when you begin to have factories many places in the world, how can you be destroyed? While here, in an island like this, sorry, I'm going to be blunt, but one bomb at a few locations and your industry is dead.
That's why a lot of countries and that they are nervous about the geopolitical risk, whether it exists, but even it's just 1% chance, but people cannot risk taking the 1% chance.
That's my point. And when you begin to distribute and interconnect, then suddenly you're everywhere. When you're everywhere, it's very tough to get to you and hurt you. You have to be smart because you need to have the cybersecurity. You need to have the understand how you're going to flow your supply chain, that all this is going to work, and make the links with the innovation and all that. Okay. But still, it changes the game because right now, geopolitically, if I'm in Taiwan, which I'm sitting here right now, it's a hot spot because you've got the two big power that are kind of
we are right in the middle.
Here, right in the middle, and you're kind of a few hours of just in a boat or a few minutes in a plane, and you're in China. And if you're in Europe and America, you see this, So you say, yes, they're nice, but until when will they be able to play the game they're playing there as it is now? So if we find ways to make it so that you're much more pervasive, you're more anchored and this anchored may be a bad word, but you're more present and active, across the world, the better you are. And this will be a model later on for many countries.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, then we'll come back to you, Shelton. You're talking about the distributed manufacturing, and then but on the other hand, there is a convergence, the US, Taiwan working, how can we work seamlessly together? And then also the human and the machine, how can we work closely together? So what the challenge? There is the geographical challenge, and there is the different industry, interdisciplinary challenge. So how do we ensure, in the process, in the future, people in different parts of the world, people in different industry sectors can work effectively? Yes, it's an ideal situation, but it is by no means easy, and it is a challenge, very challenging. A lot of failure, a lot of mistake. A lot of people say, no, naysayers say this will never work. So how can we work together toward achieving a goal that you just said?
One thing that I've learned through decades, okay, since I invented the physical internet, okay, it's been 2006 now, it's almost 20 years. I've seen, okay, where you start with this big idea and then the world gradually takes it, and so many people are going to say, no, impossible, over my dead body and all kinds of things like that. And they say, yeah, but it's not going to work for me. And then we show results, say, yeah, but no, maybe in 20 years. And they keep going, and then suddenly you begin to have like companies getting it. So what I've learned is that there are a few things that are very important. First, okay, you need to be able to assess the potentiality very rigorously. That's where the logics of digital twins, okay, become very important, because we can take the current way, show how it is, and then say, what if we play with new scenarios and be getting to very high level numbers, but also getting down to much more precise, and you begin to have virtual factories that don't yet exist, but you can walk them. You just put the goggles on and you're walking the floors of those factories. You can see the flows, etc. So those kind of things, okay, they're not the future, they're the present. Okay, we can do that those days. Now, also what I've learned a lot is that you need to have combinations of roadmaps and action. Build some success. Don't try to do it full blast everywhere. Try to do it a few places. Put your smartest brain there. Make it happen, okay? And monitor this. Treat this as pilots to
have
learn.
some small wins first.
Yes, and then check the things that could break, that could not work. And then let's test it. And then once we know
incrementally,
we grow. And then we go to the next one, and etc. And then suddenly, whoa, here it is. Because like in companies, there are to change sometimes, but one thing they know is the smell of money. And if you show them that this new way, in fact, it's much better than what we've done, and this is the only place where we're really making money, okay, in the last few years, then God, okay, let's go and deploy. And then suddenly, it was very slow, and then suddenly, boom, now they're moving. So we need to have this kind of logic that is at stake here, okay, is trying to explore, understand that there are risks, that it's going to be complex in several ways, that we have to change the paradigms in the minds of people, but also in the minds of companies, in the minds of governments also. Because some of the things that are happening now, it has to do with perceptions from governments of how things work. And those may not fit all the current reality. So it has to play the minds of people, the minds of companies, and the minds of government.
All needs to fit into place.
Exactly. And then we're able to do this. So there are many other things, but those are very basic things that I'd say don't stay there and study forever. Just go and pick subset of what you're doing and say, let's see if we try it, okay? What would it look like? And then once we understand what it would look like, you say, okay, we see the numbers. Do we have doubts? How do we make it? And go and test that stuff, build a few successes, shine on it, and learn. Most important is learn. Even if it's a failure, it's no big deal. We just learn. Now the next round,
we learn from the failure.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm not the first one to say this, but it just works.
Yes, very good. And now I want to come back to you, Shelton. My earlier question about your experience and your observation in China. I want also you understand quite a lot about Koreans. I always talk about Korean company 20 years ago and now Korean companies now. Tell me about your observation about the differences and your recommendation for Taiwan. Why it is so important to Taiwan? What can we learn from Korea, South Korea, and then to we learn from China? Putting aside the politics, we are very glad you're determined to do this in Taiwan. But share with us your perspective about different countries and how should we, Taiwan, really learn from the others and then to lead to the successful future?
Thank you, Siwan. So as Benoit has mentioned earlier, Taiwan is at this very strategic position right now, in terms of time and location, both, right? So if the companies in Taiwan and the talent and the government and then the think tank, they understood how we leverage this position, Taiwan can make into a very impactful proposition in the future dealing with AI and etc. And then out of all the territories I have managed and worked with, which included 12 countries within Asia, I see very clearly how the culture and the mindset of each country play out very differently. So you asked a very, very good question, which I will go give a try that to tell very exactly what I believe the challenges in Taiwan is faced. Number one is there's this lack of teamwork and lack of cluster mindset, and therefore lack of supply chain management concept, right? How people can work together in a cluster way and forming this team approach and try to create a company expansion strategy creatively. So that's one thing. The second thing is that exactly to what Benoit mentioned earlier, the companies in Taiwan, once they understood their strength is, they should no longer viewing just doing business within this territory, but they really have to think of how they position this by leveraging the technologies and the advantage what's available worldwide, and then to replicate these clusters and really to work with the world, literally. And I believe with the places like Vietnam, India, Malaysia, as well as United States, ever before, it posed as a great opportunity, especially within Georgia. It's an ideal place for a Taiwanese company to expand into and to kind of doing a proof of concept by adapting this AI-based manufacturing and also taking the physical internet approach to kind of manage this across. So that's the second thing, which you have to view from the perspective of the global market, not just within Taiwan. And the third is leveraging. I think that there's clearly many challenges that the companies in Taiwan are dealing with. Low birth rates, which means lack of talents, geopolitics issues, and etc. Very good at hardware design and manufacturing, but not as good as leveraging the software development capabilities. So with all these said, I think it is very easy to leverage, and now I wouldn't use the word easy, but it is important to leverage the likes of, for example, Vietnam, which has a huge population booming amongst the youngsters. And they're eager to learn, to become global. They're also eager to move geographically to Taiwan and also to the United States and other places like Korea. And, so we should leverage that, as well as talents, software development talents in India. So I take it, for example, Georgia Tech is recently working very close with IIT Madras, which is located in Chennai. They have thousands of these super smart software engineers that already tap into, working with the entrepreneurs, with the innovators, etc. There's really, now with the technologies available, it's easy for companies to work with, software engineers like that and to come up with innovative approach, on their products and solutions. So I think, if I may come into, and then the most important thing is the technologies are ready. The technology is very mature. I think what I really look up to Benoit is when he invented physical internet concept initiatives almost 20 years ago, even until recently, the last few years, he told me he never really worried about how to launch this forward because he knows that AI is always will come through. He actually never thought of AI as something special. He just thinks that AI is just a tool, very much like internet have existed long ago. And he say it's gonna, of course, make it more efficient. But what's even more important is the concept that start with the vision. Because only when you have the vision and the concept, then with the right tools, you're able to really make to a practicality. So I think with all that, we're very bullish about this new approach. And we also think that the companies in Taiwan, also across the world, should really work with Georgia Tech to kind of leverage that strength.
Taiwan is really integrated of the resources. We don't have all the elements, but as you said, if we are able to integrate the best of the best resource from Vietnam, from India, from the United States, we will be effective. And then also, as Professor Benoit said, it's empowered by Taiwan, but not necessarily in Taiwan. It's empowered by Taiwan, all over the world. I want to get to you your most important concept, the physical internet. Internet people understand, but physical internet, tell us in simple language, what is this physical internet and why it is even more relevant today?
Okay, so the digital internet has changed the game in how we move and store information. It used to be only in your computer, then within the network of a given company. Now You send an email to a friend in Georgia, and within a fraction of a second, you got your email. But no, it's not enough. You just click and suddenly we see each other like that. Like, we take this as mundane, but it has requested the interactions between different companies, different technologies to make it happen. Everybody with the same kind of protocols, okay, the same overall architecture model that is everywhere. Huge innovation all the time, but the foundations have changed to make it like completely open system, allowing to go. They were dreaming at the beginning of an information highway because they were looking at transport and logistics, etc. And see, they're carrying the freight and everything from one place to another easy. So they tried to do this, but as they were trying to do this, they understood they could do much more and develop all these concepts of the digital internet. So what we're doing with the physical internet is just use the metaphor that they've been using and say, instead of moving bytes, information, book, cups, your sofa, an apartment, everything that is physical. We can do this. And I work with 6 verbs. So what do we do with physical objects? We have to move them. We have to deploy them. So meaning we want to position them when I'm going to need it, it's going to be near to where it's needed, okay, and it's efficient. So deploying the goods. Then we have to realize the goods. We have to make them. So it's everything that we do with transform the state of this this set of products. We click together and that's it. We take it, we add a few colors, we can dismantle all things. So that's realization. That's what we do there. Then we need to supply them. So make sure that some people have some products and then it must be getting to the ends of others, etc. So all this supplying, okay, replenishment and all that has to be taught very carefully. And then we have to engineer and design the products. And then we have to use the products. So for every single one of those 6 verbs, we're thinking this instead of doing it with, let's say, with I'm going to make my products in my factory. I'm going to put them once they're done and all the inputs that I'm buying, I'm going to put this into my warehouses. And then I'm going to use my trucks, my ships, my planes to move them around the world. You get it? It's my silo dedicated to me. And we say, no, okay. Many companies are not doing that. Okay? They're using third party, etc. But we're doing it at a level that is way, way more. So if you want to go from one place to the freight to go from one place to another, we just say, bring it as soon as it's done, bring it to a logistics hub nearby. And at this place, it's going to be consolidated with products from other companies, and it's going to go in the direction where you need it. And it's going not to sleep while the trucker is sleeping, etc. It's going to keep moving, and it's going to get to this over there faster and cheaper, and climate in terms of environment much better, because every time we're going to move, we have consolidated multi-party and we move with full load most of the time over there. So just moving, like just in the US, we have 500,000 warehouses. So most of them are used by a single company. Most companies use less than 5-10 warehouses. There's 500,000. So if you could put your stuff, you have 10,000 units. If you could just put them in a few hundreds places, you could serve everybody in the US, and I can do the same in China and everywhere.
They need to be standardized in certain way in order to be transferable and movable.
Good. That was a notion in the I was trying not to go too technical, but let's go there. It's important, okay? Because on the digital internet, the big difference has been that it switched from moving any kind of information to moving only data packets, standardized data packets, very clearly done to ease the flow across the internet. The equivalent in our domain is containerization. We have the huge data packets, which are the physical packets, which are the 40-foot, 12 meter, 6 meter type of containers. Those are the big ones, okay? And then after that, we have pallets, we have cases, we have all kinds of things, but it's not standardized, all that. So in the physical internet, what we promote is that we'll have 3 tiers of containers: transport containers, handling containers, and packaging containers. And they go inside each other, and they're all done standardized, easy to move, to handle. And also when they're not used, click, they don't take a lot of space, and they can be reused and reused all the time instead of scrapping everything.
Yeah.
The beauty is that you put something in there, it's protected, and you don't even need to know what's inside to be able to manage it. We simplify the world a lot, and we're making it much more sustainable. So those are the kind of things that will enable being to play at the big deal. Otherwise, I need to know all the information about this specific cup, okay, in this specific book and everything. I need to know the details, so it takes a lot of work, a lot of information, etc. No, we just put it in a container, okay, and those two cups are together in the container, and that's it, okay. I just have the number for that container, so you, for example, are the company that made them or selling them, and so you know that there are cups in there. We don't know. I just store them, it just moves them, and they're buying the cups, and then when they get it, they're going to just open it. So this much simpler. So the physical internet is, how do we make this easy? We create nodes, okay, that are going to be doing production, doing distribution, logistics, and those have to be fast and have to be able to play with many companies there. We're creating this so that it's going to act like we perceive is happening with the digital internet, but now it's just for all the good.
Professor Benoit is the pioneer in the physical internet. So it's interesting. Earlier we talked about the fragmented, but on the other hand, what you're trying to do is to simplify it. So in a way, it's to make it more centralized and simpler. But the world, I agree with you, but the world now, as we are changing now, is one globe, two systems. So we have the China system and the non-China system. And in Taiwan, we call non-red, not red capital, non-red system. So two systems in the future. So maybe that's way to go in the future. But the final, question to Shelton.
Just a second, okay, and the last one, okay, is even China is thinking very seriously about implementing physical internet.
Okay, so their mindset
what
is
I hope is that they're going to understand that at a pre-competitive level, they need to have this unified infrastructure, same way that is happening in ICT, and compete after that above this, but not at that level.
Yeah, I think in the future, it's a cooperation and competition. It is, although China, US competitors, but on the other hand, they could share, they could cooperate in certain way. That's the key message. Very quickly, Shelton, I understand your cooperation with Donghai. You're going to have offer some courses. Perhaps you can elaborate that. You have 3 courses through the training, the 推广部, the promotion division of the university. Perhaps to begin with, I know you have a lot to offer in the future, but share with us your near-term goal.
So Georgia Tech is being divided. It's being comprises of 6 colleges. And the 6 colleges, which is the newest college that just been formed, is called College of Lifelong Learning. So the aim for the College of Lifelong Learning is really to come up with these both online certification program and customizable program that would target audiences from kindergarten all the way to professional workforce to 80 years old. So having said that, and the reason because we've seen that how people have learned will be changed drastically as well with COVID. Exactly what Benoit was saying. So this entire college, which is just formed, is looking to expand globally on that. And we are very honored to work with and collaborate with Donghai University, as Donghai is the #1 private school university in Taiwan, and they really focus on liberal art, and they also have really one of the best industry engineer program in Taiwan. So we have formed in this official collaboration by kicking off several certification program. First is we're kicking off with the physical internet certification program, which is instrumental being designed and developed by Benoit and his team. So we're going to focus on helping the manufacturers, the brand owners, the e-commerce players, the logistics players, and to really think about how they can collaborate and to transform the way how they manufacture all the way to how they deliver the product to the customers. So that's one. And then the other thing that we are introducing is called the technology transfer and commercialization professional. So this will enable to help companies with the R&D team and with the notion how they want to able to adapt patterns and how they can work with university and think tank and to come up with new innovative approach to create innovations with their products. That's the second. And the third that we're bringing on is the semiconductor IC design. We're one of the top experts in. So those are the 3 programs we're trying to.
Wonderful.
To start with, But we'll be bringing many, many more.
Okay, so today we have so much to talk about, and unfortunately, we're running out of time. I want to thank you once again. Wonderful opportunity to invite Georgia Tech Distinguished Professor of Supply Chain and Logistics, Professor Benoit Montreuil, to come to our show, and also the CEO of Georgia Tech Asia Pacific,詹斯敦Shelton. Together, we are talking about a new initiative. Georgia Tech is working with Donghai about the collaboration between U.S. and Taiwan, smart manufacturing, digital twins, and many things to come. This is an excellent opportunity. I thank you for coming to Taiwan. I thank you for believing in Taiwan, and I'm looking forward to working with you to make Taiwan great again. Thank you. Bye-bye.